we decided then let's play it to Makayla and see what she says, because this is her film. And that was even more like stressful. And she watched the film and she letterboard tears. And we were like, oh my God, we made this, and she loves it and she feels represented. And then in another letterboard session later on, she said that the film really represented her the way that she sees herself.
Wow. I feel like that's the highest compliment that a documentary filmmaker can achieve. You are listening to Talk Doc to Me, a podcast dedicated to helping documentary filmmakers thrive. I'm your host and fellow filmmaker, Leah de Leon, and today's guest is Julio Palacio. Julio is an award-winning director renowned for his ability to evoke deep emotions through his work. Proud of his Colombian roots, he infuses every project with vibrant energy and cultural diversity. Julio's recent work, Makayla's Voice, A Letter to the World, follows the story of Makayla Kane, a teenage girl with a rare form of autism that has left her nonverbal. This documentary follows her family's journey as Makayla shares her voice for the first time using a letterboard. It is beautifully captured, made me cry multiple times, and has earned accolades at prestigious festivals such as Tribeca, Slamdance, Critics' Choice, and this short documentary was recently shortlisted for the 97th Academy Awards. Welcome, Julio. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Leah. It's great to be here.
Awesome. I want to dive into how you found this story. Can you tell us how you found Makayla's story?
Sure. So it's sort of a long story, but 5 years ago, around 5 years ago, well, yeah, 5 to 6 years ago, I used to work at an agency as a director called Bright House. They did a lot of like purpose films for corporations, very inspiring, docu-style, like 3 to 4 minute, sort of like films to get employees excited about the places that they work. And towards the end of my time at the agency, I directed a commercial for an Atlanta company. That's where I'm based off. And that client wanted original music for the commercial. And someone at the agency knew this guy who was like a successful music producer, who sometimes liked to do like passion projects or like pro bono projects for companies that he liked. And that was Makayla's dad. And so I got to work with him on that, the music for that. And when I went to the studio and I just saw him like working with musicians and like this really cool guy, like really humble also for at the time he had already produced for Bruno Mars, 50 Cents, um, Cardi B, like all of the big artists he was producing for them. And I just thought he was like a really cool guy. And that year he was nominated for a Grammy. And so I asked the agency like, hey, would it be cool if we make a documentary about this guy? And they were very supportive of it. They said, let's do it, of course. Whatever you want to do, let's give it a shot. We talked to him. He was really into it. I didn't really have a structure for that film. I'm usually like very like, I need to know what I'm shooting. I need to know what the story is. For this, I just wanted to follow this guy, like leading up to the Grammys, like those 2 months to see what his life was like.
At this point, did you already meet Makayla?
And in the process of making the film, I met Makayla.
Yeah.
And so I spent like almost 2 months with him, like following him very like cinema verite. It was like sometimes like 3 or 4 hours just nonstop recording, just following this guy, shots that you thought this is never gonna make it, but let's keep rolling.
Yeah.
And it was really interesting. I started to see how he was always trying to balance like his work and like his family life, and how much he had to take care of Makayla. At the time, Makayla didn't communicate. Nobody really knew if she was there for sure. The family always kind of like felt that there was something inside Makayla, but most people assumed that she just wasn't there, which was really sad. We finished shooting that project. He actually invited me to the Grammys. He got me a ticket to go to the Grammys, which was really, really cool. And he won the Grammy that year for a Cardi B song. And so I was like, yes, this is great. We started following this guy for 2 months. We saw him with his family. We saw him at the studio with these like great musicians. We followed him to LA. We shot in Universal Studios. Then we went to the Grammys. He won the Grammy. It's gonna be this super cool story about this cool guy making music.
Mm-hmm.
But when we went to the edit room, we found that the story was the relationship between him and Makayla.
Mm.
And I finished the film, and right after I finished, I left the agency. I knew I wanted to make documentaries, and I was at the agency for like almost 5 years, and I thought it was my time to like do something different. They
Yeah.
were super supportive. They were like, "We'll help you whatever in whatever way you want." But because I left, they kind of took the project. I think they didn't do much with it. They tried like maybe a few festivals, but they were doing their usual work, so they didn't really have time
Yeah.
for to promote it
Mhm.
or try it. And they didn't know how documentary really works, like promoting documentary at the time.
Right.
So that was the end for that film.
What was that film called?
It was called As Long as I Got You, and I don't think
Mhm.
it was ever released. I might have a copy somewhere.
I was gonna say, where can I watch it? I didn't see
I'm
anything
gonna
on it like
find it.
that.
I'm not too proud of it just because it wasn't my style. But
Mm,
maybe, but
okay.
I showed to a few people maybe a few years ago, and people seem
Yeah.
to like it. So
Yeah.
maybe it's just
But it was really the relationship between father and daughter.
that was I think that was the biggest theme of the whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm gonna find it.
Yeah.
Maybe
Find it.
I'll
Find
see.
it.
I'll find it. I'll rewatch it. If I think it's good enough, I'll send it to you.
Okay. I th- so from that point, so you went on your own at that point. So 5 years at an agency, you're thinking, I love documentaries. I want to go out on my own. And then where did it shift to where it became about Makayla?
Sure. So 2.5 years ago, literally 2.5 years ago, because I had a baby and he was 2 months, and it was the first time that we took him out. We wanted to go to a restaurant. My wife and I were like, we need to get out of the house. It's been 2 months with this little baby crying all the time. Let's go find some normalcy. And that same day, I saw him at a restaurant. Makayla's dad, Kari, and he told me like, I have been looking for you for the past 3 months because you're not gonna believe this. Makayla can communicate, and she's been letterboarding for the past 6 months. Actually, she had been letterboarding for 6 months. And so a few months before we met, he had the idea that he wanted to make another film, and we just hadn't been able to get in touch. I was
So
traveling.
you just ran into him at a restaurant.
Literally, it was just like life works like some because sometimes you like are so stressed and worried about your next project. What can I do? How can I make this work? Am I working hard enough? I need to read more stories. I need to find this thing. But sometimes these things just happen and projects just find you. And so we met at the restaurant. They met the baby. He told me that Makayla was communicating. I was like, oh my God, this is so crazy. This is great. And he said, I want to make another film. I'm going to send you the transcripts of all of the letterboard sessions that she's had so far. And
Mm.
so he sent me like 250 pages of that.
Mhm.
And when I started like reading what she was saying on those transcripts, I was like blown away. This is just like wow, she's a genius. She's a poet.
She's a poet.
She actually speaks like better than she writes better than most people I know
Mhm.
that are
Mhm.
professionals even.
Yeah.
And so we started talking about the film. He kind of told me what he wanted out of the film. Based on the transcripts, I kind of knew immediately what I wanted out of the film, which was to create like
Mm.
this almost like this poem,
Mm,
but
okay.
also, but I didn't want to exclude all of the hard parts of being autistic because this could have been just like beautiful the whole time and like
Right.
meditative almost. But I wanted to have like a structure where there was also the struggle and coming out of it. And the great thing about working with Korean Mañana, because Makayla's mother was also heavily involved through the whole process,
Mhm.
was that I had freedom to just do whatever I wanted to do. They basically are still in the process. They're building a center. They want to like
Mhm.
help autistic kids that don't have the resources that they have. So when we started the project, they wanted to do like fundraising with the film.
Mm,
And that was the
mhm.
whole purpose of this film. make me a beautiful film about our family, about Makayla, so that we can do fundraising to build this center to help people.
Mm.
Um, but then, and then they said, whatever you want to do, just do whatever you
Right,
want.
creative freedom. This is my goal. I want to raise money for our center for this reason, but you're the creative. You figure out how to do it.
Exactly, which is
Yeah.
like the best thing that you can hear as a
Right.
filmmaker.
Right. What stood out to you in the first, like you said, 250 pages of transcriptions? Yeah. What first stood out to you?
Funny enough, there's like some things that she said about art that are not in the film. She was always so close to art. She talks about Van Gogh. She talks about how she listens to music. She talks about other painters as well. She kind of went into the whole art history, like all of these famous painters. And I love that she was like always trying to find a way. I think this is the beauty of Makayla. It doesn't matter what she's talking about. She always finds a way to kind of like connect it to her situation and how she sees the world. And I just think that's beautiful because she's able to find always like very, very interesting ways of making that connection.
Yes, and I found that the Van Gogh animations were very interesting. Can you talk about the inspiration behind that and how you actually executed on that?
Sure. So, well, let me go back to the transcripts because that's kind of
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it took a little time to organize everything structurally from the transcripts because I don't want to say random is not the right word, but some days she was talking about art and other days she was talking about the space. So this was not in order at any point. So that was always kind of like difficult.
So, as documentary filmmakers, we are dealing with real life, right? And real people. And naturally, that means that we have a lot of constraints sometimes, depending whether it's schedule or where someone lives, or I don't know. There's so many different things that it could be. And in this situation, Makayla, it was nonverbal at the beginning of this journey. So, how was that as a challenge? How did you think of it as a director, and how did you think to have the style to accomplish her perspective?
That's a great question. It honestly was very difficult at the beginning because as directors we try to think that the job is about controlling and sometimes at least in this case it was about letting go. Because you can direct Makayla. There were days that I had the whole crew, and when I say the whole crew, it was like three of us.
Yeah.
Uh, and we just got there, and she wasn't feeling it. So, and we were like expecting to film for at least like to do at least like half a day, and we just had to like go. I was like, let's just shoot B-roll of Atlanta because we couldn't do it. So that was difficult. Something that helped because I kind of like had a script before we started shooting as
Mhm.
a script basically with her writings and with the structure that I wanted. But I didn't know how I was gonna tell the story. Initially, I wanted to almost make it like a silent film with only subtitles, and then I realized if it's more than 5 minutes, it's just gonna be very boring. So the first thing that I saw was the intro. Once I kind of like got the idea to give her a voice. I saw that intro immediately. I knew that I wanted to start with the snake. I knew that I wanted to do the rewinds, and I think kind of like what made the film different was finding that idea, that solution to how to like express her voice, and I think that's what changed everything. And then when we said because I was just gonna do it and I was gonna find a voice myself, I was gonna read this thing, and then I started talking to my team, and I don't remember who had the idea. Maybe it was all of us. We did like a brainstorming session, and then um, when we had that idea, we were like, "This is really cool if we just film her selecting this voice." So I reached out to my audio guy. We auditioned like 30 voices. I pre-selected 15, and then she selects the voice in the film. You actually see her. doing the writing. And I think that changed everything because I started to see that it was very difficult to direct her and that I wasn't getting what I needed for the film. Once I had the voice, I knew I could kind of like cut the film and then see what I needed visually. And that's what we did. Once I worked with Portia, because I had the script, I actually edited this with my editor without any visuals. But I had the music. When I was writing the script, I was like already plugging in music too. I want this song to be here. I want this song to be here. So we edit everything to the voiceover without any visuals. But even then, when we were just like closing our eyes and just listening to this like 20-minute conversation with Makayla, it was just powerful. We knew, even no, when I did the voiceover with Portia, and I know we're gonna potentially talk about that after this. At that moment, I knew that this film could be very, very special.
Mm.
Yeah.
It's so interesting. Like it's almost like challenges are opportunities and it's like, well, it's actually interesting to think inside the box a little bit. Like, well, we don't have all the options in the world, right? We have constraints, but how can we creatively problem solve? And so I think it's so I mean, because when I first watched it, I, of course, didn't know anything about it. I just turned it on Netflix. I'm like, "Cool, I'm gonna watch this." I normally never read log lines. I normally just, like, start watching stuff. And I will say, like, as a viewer, for the first time, it was a little I was, like, confused at first, like, "Oh, like, what's happening? Like, why are we rewinding? Like, why are there different voices?" And then as soon as I saw the real life moment of Makayla saying, letterboarding Portia, like, "Portia's my voice." It was like, whoa, it all made sense. And then the rest of the film was just all the more powerful because it was like, wow, like it's really Michaela's voice. Like, yes, it's not her voice, but she chose it. She's the one that's creatively, these are her thoughts. And in her mind, this is like the best representation of it. So I'm sure that must be a very cool moment for you as well and for the rest of the team and her parents too. Can you talk about just, like, how emotional maybe that was to just see that unfold creatively?
It was very scary because when you share your work, usually with a client, there's always this like stress: are they gonna like it? Are they gonna hate it? Are they gonna just be like, yeah, it's okay? Which is probably worse. That's probably the worst reaction ever. I like it when people hate it or love it, because if they hate it, you can just like restructure everything. But when it's just like, you don't know what to change. Um, but in this situation, it was even more difficult because these are Michaela's parents. They love their daughter so much. And and so there was like sort of like this responsibility that I felt to like make sure that they loved it, because it was a film about their family and about their pretty girl. Um and so we did actually, just like before I showed them the entire film, the first rough cut, I showed them the intro with the snake and the rewinds, and they probably have the same reaction you have, where they were like, I don't know if this makes sense. But then they said, just keep going. And then when it's ready, just shows. Then when they watch it the first time, they really like it. But there was a moment where they were confused because they were not expecting Michaela's voice to sound like that. They have this idea of what she sounds, out of love, out of whatever. And so there was a moment where they actually thought about changing the voice. Like, can we just like have her pick another voice? But I told them, well, it wouldn't be a documentary anymore because this is the voice that she chose. And they immediately went like, of course you're right, you're right. And so we decided, then let's play it to Makayla and see what she says, because this is her film.
Mhm.
And that was even more like stressful. And she watched the film and she let her pour tears. And we were like, oh my God, we made this, and she loves it and she feels represented. And then in another letterboard session later on, she said that the film really represented her the way that she sees herself.
Wow. I feel like
Yeah.
that's the highest compliment that a documentary filmmaker can achieve is for well, their loved ones to say like, wow, you really captured them, but also for your character to say, wow, like you captured my essence, which is
Yeah.
like, it's so difficult, but it's so satisfying, and it's that satisfying moment. So I feel like a lot of people, you said like, it's Makayla's film, and I think a lot of documentary filmmakers, when they set out to make their film, sometimes it can get a little bit cloudy of like, is it my film? Is it their film? How do we balance all of, the behind the making of the documentary too, of, creative expressions and who gets the final say and things like that. So I'm curious if you have any advice for filmmakers that, and I like this analogy of like, we as filmmakers, we are, the instrument, if you will. Like we are just the tool, the means to which, our character's voice should be heard. So what kind of advice do you have for filmmakers that want to make sure that they are representing their character in the best light possible and in its true essence? What kind of advice do you have?
I think it's very important to listen to the project. And I know it's really hard. And as filmmakers, we say that we want to find our voice, that we want to have our style, and I don't think filmmakers should necessarily have a voice. Is the voice of the project. And once you approach a project with that perspective, and you try to just find the perspective of how your character sees and feels and interacts with the world, because when you start a project, where am I going to put the camera? What's going to be this? What's going to be that? Once you know whose perspective it is, things just become more simple. You get the answers to everything. With Makayla, like a lot of the music that I selected is not my favorite music, but it was right for her. It was right for the story that we were telling. It was right for the feeling that we were trying to create. So whenever you get a project, I think it's really important to listen to the voice of the project, not your own voice. And once you do that, things are gonna be more simple. You're gonna know how to tell the story. And when you do that, it's still gonna pass through you because you're the one telling the story. So a little bit of you is gonna be in the project, but you're servicing the story. And I think that's kind of my advice to filmmakers. Try to service the story that you have in front of you.
Mm, that's beautiful advice. I want to talk about the letters that are included in the film. So, Makayla writes a letter to her mom and also to her dad. And specifically, the letter to her dad, I have to say, like, always makes me tear up. Like, that's where I always get emotional. And so, I'm curious, how did that originate? And yeah, what was your perspective on including those letters?
Um, I felt that including those letters was gonna help in like really understanding who Makayla was and the relationship that she has with her family. There were also like letters to sister, letter to brother, but I had to pick two, and this just felt right, because she spends a lot of the time with both mom and dad, and you're right. Letter to dad was a very tricky one for me because I knew the relationship that they had from the previous film. So I wanted to make that one as impactful as possible. And when we were recording the voiceover with Portia, that's the one letter where the whole section of the script where we did it multiple times. I just felt that we needed to get that one right for the story to work. And I think people react really well to how Portia delivered the emotion on that letter. And yeah, I don't know, they're just so beautiful, both letters. Like
And
I love
Did Makayla already have those letters written out, or like how did you encourage her to write letters? How did that come about?
those were from the transcripts.
Okay, that's from the original transcript. Okay.
Mhm. Those were from the
Lovely.
original. Yeah.
Mhm.
And I love the one to mom because it's like an introduction. So that's why we put that one first, because she's kind of like introducing herself. So we get to see how she sees the world by telling mom. And so, yeah, I think that's kind of the reason we picked those two letters.
Yeah. And working with Portia, I'm curious how people that are thinking of using voiceover in general, maybe it's from the first person perspective, maybe it's even from a perspective of one of the characters in your film, or maybe it's even hiring a voice actor in this, situation. What what kind of project do you think lends itself to voiceover? Thinking of like letting the project speak, right? Like what kind of questions could somebody ask themselves thinking if voiceover might be correct for them?
Ooh, that's a tough question.
I know that's kind of hard.
Um, I think a lot of like very inspirational stuff uh, tends to work better with a voiceover because you get to control the emotion with that as well. Like, a good voiceover and good music can really make you feel a lot. And I think that's why commercials, I direct commercials as well. And a lot of the commercials have like voiceover. It's probably the easiest way to create emotion and still tell the story in a very like efficient way. So in Makayla's case, it's obvious why, because she can speak. But in general, I think voiceovers are a good tool to create emotion.
Yeah. And when choosing Portia, obviously Michaela chose Portia. At that point, can you talk about maybe some tips for directing voice talent? How do you do that?
Sure. Um, just have enough time. Like I think it took us like 3.5, almost 4 hours, and this is not like a long script because there's also like breaks, there's also like interviews. So the actual voiceover part is not that long, but just have enough time. Try to put the talent at ease as much as you can. If you need to repeat it, just don't be shy. Just say like, "Let's try it again. Let's try it again." And and then it is also very important to work with your editor because sometimes you have to piece these things together. Like this is not like the one read that we put there is just like taking little pieces from different moments. But and always try to find the objective of each scene when you're working with this talent. Like with Portia, like going back to letter to dad. That was like, okay, Portia, so this is like she's like daddy's girl and she loves dad so much. Let's make sure that emotion is there. Or when she's talking about how hard it is to be autistic. Like I want to feel that pain. Give me more. And so if you have to do it 10 times, do it as many times as you need to make sure that you get the part that you need and that you're getting the emotion that you're looking for.
Mhm.
We got very lucky because Portia is such a professional and she has like such an amazing soul. And for her, she's told me because we still talk, we stay in touch. Everybody, the whole team, we're like super connected. It's like this project was meant to be in a way, but it's also the energy of everybody involved in the project has been so positive. Even when we were acquired by Netflix, that we were a little like scared, it's this like big company that is gonna come. But even the people at Netflix too, everybody seems to be like so in tune with this and with the goal that we wanna achieve with this, which is like to find more voices like Makayla. And so it's just been crazy to see that you're trying to do something good for the world and that energy is kind of spreading and everybody in the team has been part of that energy and kept that energy for these past 2 years. But Portia was I think the film wouldn't be like what it is without Portia. So I'm so glad. Maybe Makayla. I mean, knowing Makayla and the way she can see things, like
She's the artist. She's like, that's me. Got it. Portia hired.
maybe she even felt that Portia had the right energy as a human being. I don't know, but Portia is amazing, and she's been an advocate for the film as well, and instrumental for the film.
Yeah. Yeah. Can you talk about how the Netflix deal came about? What can you tell us non-Netflix filmmakers that dream of one day seeing their film on Netflix? What can you tell us?
Um, I think it's the festivals. It honestly is the festivals. We started this, or when we finished the film, we wanted to start beginning of the year. So the first festival that we submitted to was Slamdance, which I think is a great place to start a festival circuit because they really support emerging filmmakers. Like even if you don't have any projects, if nobody knows who you are, if they like your film, they're gonna select it. But people really like to go to see what London selects, and so that can open doors for other festivals. So I've done the festival circuit many times. This is, of course, the most successful run that I had. Um, but I really would encourage filmmakers to get their films submitted to film festivals. It's tough. The rejection is annoying. You
Yeah.
probably know this.
Yeah.
Uh, Everybody knows this who has made a film and put it through film festivals. Even Makayla, as successful as it has been, when I look at the ratio, it's probably like 60-40, 60% acceptance, 40% rejection. So don't be discouraged if you're not selected.
Yeah.
But when we started a slam dance, that kind of gave us a lot of traction. Then we went to Florida. Then we went to Cleveland, which another amazing film festival. We won there. That's where we got our Oscar qualification. And then after that, the thing is like once you start getting into the big ones, people from all of these other bigger festivals are going to these festivals to find more films. And so we slowly went to Cleveland, and then from Cleveland, we went to Tribeca. And I think that was kind of the game changer once you're at Tribeca. And when we went to Tribeca, we were like just happy to be selected. That was the honor of our lifetime. And then we went to the screenings. I was gonna leave the day before they announced the winners because we're never gonna win this. I mean, it's Tribeca. And then I was like, you know what? Let me stay one more day. Let me just go to this thing, see what happens.
Yeah.
And then we won Tribeca, and that also helped us. That's when a lot of companies started to reach out for screeners, and that's when we started conversations about distribution. Yeah, and I also want to mention, this is not a promotion, but I'm thankful for the festivals. But Indie Shorts, Amazing Film Festival, Woodstock, of course, those are some of the ones that I remember. And forgive me for the ones that I don't remember, but all of the festivals were great this year.
Yeah. And for other independent documentary filmmakers, I think everyone like thinks of that moment of like, wow, like if I could get into that one festival, maybe I'll get noticed. But maybe a lot of people don't talk about how to be prepared for that moment. Now that you have been shortlisted, which I will say I looked it up right before this, and 104 films qualified for the Oscars, and the top 15 get shortlisted. So right now you're in the top 15, and then the top 5 become nominated, and then of course one is crowned the winner. So a lot of people maybe dream of this situation, right, of like getting in Tribeca, winning and getting noticed. But how can we as filmmakers be prepared for that moment? Like what do you recommend um whether it's team wise or asset wise or just mentally, like how can you prepare for that moment so that you can, seize the day when it happens?
Absolutely. Well, technically, I would say have like a folder, like a Google Drive folder, with everything, your bios, like your team's bios, headshots. I know this sounds silly, but when they select you, sometimes they need this information quickly, and it's better just to have everything organized. Have a director statement, have a synopsis and logline for your film. Have, if you have like trailers, have those files ready to be sent to people. Then have different versions of your film, like a ProRes, an MP4, one with subtitles, one with that subtitle. All of this sounds like silly, but when you get selected, sometimes you got like 2 weeks to turn all of these materials to the festival, and if you don't have them, you're gonna be really stressed, especially if you're working on another project. So I think that's really important to have everything organized, everything ready to go. Mm, Another, mentally, just kind of like have like key points that you want to talk about your film. Like know your film, know the process, kind of what we're doing today. Uh, know as much as you can from the whole process, so that you can start doing the Q&As And if you're afraid of talking in front of people, there's one thing that you really have to work on, because there's gonna be a lot of that. So practice at home. Honestly, it is everything sounds silly, but it's just like simple stuff that you have to do to be ready for the moment. And sometimes it's just like literally just talking to the mirror or recording yourself at home. How am I sounding? Like, to me, I try to do that because of my accent, just to make sure that it doesn't get in the way. Um, but all of that helps. So I think you have a really good point, which is you have to be ready for when these things
Yep.
happen, because a lot of times you start submitting and you kind of like want it to happen, but you're not sure if it's gonna
You're
happen.
not ready, or like, yeah, you're relaxing, you're maybe working on the next project, or I mean, I just feel like it can be a rocket ship that you need to, like, have your stuff and your crew ready to go, and also mentally too. Um,
Yes.
so I think all of that is very, very helpful. Was there anything surprising about Netflix, like, getting onto Netflix? Does your life change overnight? Do people start looking at you differently, like, "Wow, you're on Netflix," or is there anything that you wanna say, that has changed or maybe not changed?
No, I think it's the same. You just have maybe like more conversations with people, like more Q&As, more
Yeah.
podcasts. And but yeah, you start getting more opportunities, more calls for new projects. Um, there's definitely a little change, so it's a good thing if it happens. Yeah,
Nice. Um, and speaking of, like, being an advocate for your film, right? Like, we are filmmakers, we're artists, but also in this situation, you become a spokesperson also on behalf of Makayla and on behalf of autism potentially. And sometimes I feel like that could be from a filmmaker's perspective, maybe, either if you feel a part of that community or if you don't feel a part of that community, or just kind of like the ethics around feeling like you can or cannot say certain things. I just wanna, like, open up the floor for, how that feels, and maybe any tips for filmmakers that might feel like, "Oh, well, like, I don't have anyone in this situation," maybe, like, "I don't have anyone in my family that deals with autism, like, ho why am I the right person to be tell this story?" Or, I think a lot of us have that, like, internal dialogue, but we never really get a chance to, like, talk about it. So I just wanna, like, open up the floor with, how you've been dealing with that, with this particular film too.
sure. Great questions. I mean, I love these questions, challenging questions.
Yeah.
But you're so right. It's really hard. To me, it was hard in the especially at the beginning, because in a lot of the conversations I was asked a lot about like her condition, about autism, about all of these things. And you're right. You feel like I don't know enough. I don't know enough about this, so it's hard. So I decided that my role is to talk about the emotional components of the film, because that's what I did. I don't I I don't know enough about autism uh, to be able to, I'm not an expert, right? But I can tell you how she feels, and I can tell you how she sees the world. So I decided to just put my focus on that, and the reason the film is the way it is because I didn't want to make a film about autism. I wanted to make a film about someone finding their voice. And so that's I focus on the stuff that I know, and people can research other stuff. There's Google, there's AI, and so if at some point in the film, when we were like doing the distribution part of it, we got a lot of offers from different companies, and one of the companies that reached out, they wanted to they wanted the film, but they wanted to change things, and they wanted to make it more like we need to learn more about her condition and about all of these things that were more technical, and I immediately turned the deal down because that's not the film that I made. Maybe someone else can make a better film about that, but this is not a film. So I think it's just like focus on the stuff that you know. Try to learn as much as you can about the stuff that you're kind of like dealing with. But in for this film, I decided to focus on the emotion and the structure and the filmmaking of it more than the autism part.
Yeah. No, I think that's really powerful. Stick to what you know. And it's also it's also okay if you're not exactly in that same situation as your character or that community. It's okay. You had access. You ran into, you ran into him at the restaurant. You had that relationship beforehand. And I think it all comes down to relationships. So it doesn't matter what your background is or what situation or topic that you know or don't know. It comes down to relationships, and they had trust in you as a filmmaker to tell that story, and you should celebrate that. You should be confident in that and not necessarily feel like you have to know every single thing about everything. To your point, they can go to Google, they can go to AI, they could do whatever. And so I think that's really good advice, because sometimes you can get in your head, or even sometimes I feel like there's certain grants or opportunities that maybe are very specific to the type of filmmaker that you are. Like we're only giving to female filmmakers, or we're only giving to, you know, BIPOC filmmakers or filmmakers with autism. And sometimes it can feel like siloing a little bit, like, okay, like why can't I be the one that tells the story? Like I'm the one hanging out with her every day. Like why can't I? And I think it's a really tricky, conversation to have, but I think I like what you said about, stick to what you know and be confident in that. And also too, like, you know, the family chose you for a reason. And I think you have to be confident in that. And anyone else that is trying to say anything else, what the heck? You're a storyteller. You're the instrument. It's not actually your voice. You're the one that's, uplifting others. So I think, yeah, I just appreciate the conversation. I think more people need to talk about it.
Yeah, and we're all humans,
Yeah.
so we can tell the story of another human regardless of who they are.
True.
Uh, I think I remember this when you were saying all of this. This is an older movie, Brokeback Mountain. You remember? And the director is Hanley, was it?
I don't remember the director, but
He was asked the same question back then, like many years ago, like why if he's not gay, why is he telling this story? And I remember he said, because I'm just telling a love story, and it's as simple as that. So
yeah,
yeah,
that's awesome. Well, amazing. I want to do some rapid fire questions. So, before I begin, is there anything else that you want to add about Makayla's voice or your journey thus far?
I think we're good. No, I think we covered everything.
Okay. Now we're going to do some rapid fire questions. So, are you ready?
Right.
Okay. Um, recent favorite film doesn't have to be documentary. Can be like anything that inspired you recently.
Superman, the feature documentary Daughters, Frida, and the Remarkable Life of Evelyn.
Ooh, love it. Okay. Narrative or documentary?
Narrative for my next project, at least.
Ooh, okay. All right. All right. Favorite set snack?
Bananas.
Bananas. Um, favorite mantra for yourself that you tell yourself as of late?
Uh, everybody who made it was just a person like you.
Mm.
It was just a normal guy
Mm.
or a normal
Mo-
girl.
yes.
Pretty hard.
Most underrated tool for documentary filmmakers.
Oof. God, that's a hard one. Your iPhone camera.
Okay. iPhone camera. Love it. Love it. What is the what is the lowest budget project that you've ever done?
Um, zero budget, just plane tickets to Colombia to shoot a story about war veteran.
Okay. And what's the highest budget project that you've ever worked on?
Uh, probably 600,000.
Mhm. And who's the first person that you call with good news?
Usually my wife.
Okay, what about bad news?
My wife.
Nice. Um, and who else should I have on this podcast?
Oof. Sasha Levinson or Sam Hansen, producers of Makayla's Voice. They're both amazing filmmakers and great people.
Love it. Well, thank you so much, Julio, for this conversation. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you, Leah.
That's a wrap on today's episode. Thank you so much for listening and or watching. please go watch Makayla's Voice on Netflix. Reach out to us if you have any other podcast guest recommendations. Like, subscribe, leave us a comment, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.